Tick, tick, boom.
And now I want to sit back and relax and enjoy my evening. When all of a sudden I hear this agitating, grating voice.
Come on out, Laura. We'd like to talk to you.
Shh. Don't tell them.
You can't stop! Can't stop, won't stop. Where the bricks at? I give him that ditty bop. Like, take that, take that, take that, take that. I'ma put in work. I'ma do that ASAP.
Hello. Okay. Hi, besties. How are we? It's a Tuesday, right? Yeah, Tuesday. And I immediately needed to have someone explain all of this stuff that just came on out about the Canton police audit. And there was no better person that came to my mind. I was like, I need my Nan. I need her. I need her knowledge, her expertise. And she came through. She came through. She said, yes, of course, because that's who she is. She is a giver. She is she's everything. We all know that already. So yes, hi chat. I know we're in competition with Will the Glare, so he's going over it, but guess what? He don't have no Nan. Moa has Nan. But I usually don't do guests, but today is definitely an exception because it's a treat for me. I was trying to look through everything and I was like, there's a lot of pages here. But thankfully people did say like, these are the pages to look at, all that. And I was like, I just want it explained. And there was no better person than I was like, I need my Nan. Who's having her on? Where is she going? Like, find out. And you know what? I popped in her DM to ask her because that's the type of girl she is. She's amazing. I love her. And without any further ado, I'm going to bring her on so we can get down to this because I need to hear about all this. And there is a lot that is focused on the town of Canton as well, but we're just going to focus on the John O'Keefe stuff because that, hello, is the Karen Reed stuff. So yes, I'm going to add her now. And here's my girl, my bestie, Nan Gallagher. LAWFERIO.
Hello, how are you, Esty?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I thank you for sliding into my DMs. It's been a crazy day for the Karen Reed case, and I have a little bit of a busy day on the tail end of our chat. But thank you so much for asking me to be here. I appreciate it.
Of course. I mean, there was nobody else that I knew that would explain all this, and that's what we need. We need information that is correct, information that from somebody that knows what they're talking about instead of all of us speculating and like just reading it. And yeah, so that's why I needed you.
I'm happy to help. And also just to refresh everyone's background, I actually have police law experience before I became a health law attorney. So while I do criminal defense work, my original roots were formed doing police defense work. So when I saw that the audit came out, which I know everyone's been anxiously awaiting, when I saw the report come out, I was like, oh my God, because I've seen reports like this before. And you're absolutely right. There are certain pages to pay attention to. And I may actually need you or your chat to direct me to if I'm missing any of the pages just because I'm multitasking. And you all are also going to see me with my badass glasses on today too, because some of what I'm reading is on my phone. But I know that this, well, by the way, this is your show, Esty. So you lead me wherever you want me to go.
You do whatever you want to do. I am not a host or I don't do guests, so I don't know what, but
Okay.
We're women warriors. We know how to do this. This is in
Well,
our genes.
we'll just support one another. I will be your very I guess I would say vocal guest today. So when we've been waiting for this audit to come out, I had originally heard that, the audit results were going to kind of be plain vanilla and no one should get their hopes up. But I have to say, in considering some of the findings, I would say this is a pretty, let me make sure this is facing me because I'm going to be turning my head a bit. I would say this is a pretty favorable audit as far as the Karen Reed defense is concerned. So while I talk kind of specifically about how this relates to Karen Reed's case, I want everyone who's from the Canton area to know, who's watching now or who may watch later, that these findings, while to some may feel like they didn't really conclude anything that's so favorable to us or nothing's going to change, I would say not necessarily so. And also, please keep the faith, because it's this type of introspection, even if it's done once or multiple times through an audit process or a challenging of an audit process, this is how foundational building blocks occur. So I by no means, when I kind of direct my commentary here to the Karen Reed case, I want everyone to know I'm not discounting how it affects people in Canton as well. So, and I hold all of you close to my heart because I got to meet a lot of you, and I hope to see you all again soon. First, I want to mention that in terms of this this audit, I actually might know the person who drafted the report. So I don't know, but it's an uncommon name. So this was done by a company called Five Stones Intelligence, and I'd never heard of that company before today, but I happen to have a prior professional relationship with the person who authored the report down in Washington, D.C., which is a jurisdiction in which I'm licensed. So it's an uncommon name. I won't name that individual on your stream, but I have placed a phone call just to see if there's anything else I can find for you and your audience. Now, with respect to the, pardon the rosy specs while we talk about this stuff, but with respect to the findings, I think it's important to know that when this audit took place, it absolutely was done through the lens of looking back to see if anything was done wrong with the John O'Keefe investigation. And all of these municipalities always prefer to come out with favorable findings. I mean, there's not only a liability interest in that, but there's also a monetary interest in that. Just so your audience is aware, many times public entities like towns, counties, states, boroughs, townships, all the different names for towns, they often have insurance policies that cover them for wrongdoing that's typically in the form of like simple oversights or negligence, as you all may know that. But generally, insurance policies don't cover things like willful, reckless, wanton acts that are things that people, including law enforcement, should know better. An example of that would be like the state of New Jersey that employs Massachusetts police or former trooper Proctor. So the Massachusetts State Police, which used to employ former trooper Proctor, they would never, through their insurance, cover the conduct of former trooper Proctor. The conduct that we all are very familiar with as it relates to some of the very inappropriate and salacious text messages that he engaged in and exchanged with not only friends, but other fellow law enforcement officers. His conduct by sending those would never be covered by an insurance policy. The other thing I just want to mention to your audience and to you, SD, is that that's important because not only would insurance cover future losses, for example, if Karen is acquitted, she most certainly would be filing a civil rights action against all possible defendants that you could think of. Name them, whether it's police departments, state police departments, the state of New Jersey, individual officers.
So I'm
And
going to say when Karen is acquitted,
yeah,
she is going to blah,
yeah,
blah, 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 blah. Mhm.
exactly. She's going to, and I keep the faith with that. But when she does, typically these insurance policies I'm talking about are the ones that cover losses. That's how people who are like wrongfully convicted or get out of jail after 20 years and they end up filing these suits for wrongful conviction and imprisonment, they get millions of dollars if they're vindicated, because in these civil rights actions, the money has to come from somewhere. That's why a lot of people joke that one day it's going to be Karen Rita-Chusitz up there. And I know it's kind of hyperbolic to say it, but the money doesn't come out of officers' pockets or prosecutors' pockets. It comes out of these policies. And the last point on that I would mention to you all is many times these types of municipalities, including Canton, they have captive insurance policies or self-insured retentions. That means that the actual municipality or the state of New Jersey or counties like County of Norfolk, they actually pay some of their own insurance losses as well. It comes out of taxpayer dollars. So, nutshell is that Canton, in this instance for our discussion, has a rooting financial interest in having a favorable audit result. So we understand that. Now, with regard to the findings, which is why I got the back call from you.
Mhm.
All right. And anyone, I'm not really tracking your chat, but I kind of work for you guys. So if there's any pages you guys think I'm missing, just kind of make sure we're aware of them. But it does appear to me that
Should
the
I pull
find.
up what you're reading?
Oh, that
at
would be
all?
great. I'm looking
Yeah.
at screenshots too, which is not helpful. I have the whole very actually lengthy 206-page report in front of me, but I'm looking at a screenshot which has, well, this is what happens when I really need to get progressives where I can just keep them on. I'm actually looking at the observations and findings, which were posted on X. I don't know what page they're on. It does look
Yeah,
like it's.
someone informed me like page 98 is the bomb drop.
All right, here we go,
But
girl.
it goes from like 87 to 98.
Thank you. Normally, I'm a little bit more prepared, but I absolutely appreciate you being so accommodating with my schedule today. And if my microphone's not working well because I'm turning the other way, let me know. All right. So they actually have a whole subsection here concerning the death of Officer John O'Keefe. And I can tell you, I did a quick search on this auditing company that seems to have been either owned or at least the report prepared by someone whom I think I know. They're actually well regarded. It's a well regarded entity. They go through a timeline of all of the different things that occurred. So I'm actually starting at page 87 of this 206-page document or report, but they go through picture by picture, timeline, point in time by point in time, and there is probably a spin on this, meaning we're all going to look at this and dissect it and say, well, wait a minute, they said this happens at 6:04, but they're missing A, B, C, and D. Nobody should approach the review of this report as being like all inclusive. This is not going to be what we've all been clamoring for. Specifically, if you recall, Esty, over the weekend when Olivia kind of said, look at this. And there were others as well, where they were like, look at this. There was a phone call at this time. And this, now we're kind of
screen at this time. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was all of this kind of collaboration of overlapping timelines and trying to figure out when phone calls took place. No one's going to ever see that in an audit like this. So just
Right.
everyone should take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But they go through point by point, time by time, minute by proverbial minute, and they offer their timeline of what happened. Now, I'm happy to read it if you want me to read the timeline that they have here, but that's up to you. I can.
I think the crowd that's here and watching is pretty knowledgeable and has heard the timeline a
Yeah.
lot of times. So it's
Yes.
basically their findings of what.
Right. So when I was reviewing this, I thought, to me, page 96 was a great start for what the audit team found. And that page 96 talks about, there's bullets on it. And I'm going to kind of read them and discuss them with you all. But at the top, towards the top of the page, for example, so they have concluded that the Canton Police Department did not follow their P&Ps, or policies and procedures, related to evidence collection and preservation. Just a couple points on that before we just go through them. This is the type of evidence that the defense in Karen Reed's case wants to get into evidence in her trial. They wanted to get it into evidence through expert who's now been barred, Michael Easter. I candidly had in the back of my mind always said, I'm not sure why they would use an FBI agent or former FBI agent expert to get that in, because frankly, he could have just been a quote police expert, and Auntie Bev would have kept a police expert out as well. But the individual they selected, Michael Easter, has been barred by Auntie Bev. I disagree with her decision strongly. Karen has a right to advance a Bowden defense to point holes in the investigation and the poor method or lack of methods in which they collected and preserved evidence. So the audit team did find that they were dilatory or negligent or did not follow the P&Ps, policies and procedures, in how they did collect and preserve evidence. Also, they found that there were no BCI, which is the Bureau of Criminal Identification Units, initially on the scene, and that there were no crime scene kits available. If we recall, the Solo cups and the leaf blowers and the evidence collection bags, a la Stop and Shop. And they've said, according to Massachusetts Crime Lab, plastic is not recommended for packaging these types of biological or moist materials. And I wholly agree. I mean, but that's the kind of thing, just so you all know, that's the kind of thing that maybe a jury would be able to understand. That is within their knowledge. Yeah. But where Bev missed the mark is because Bev assumes that's all that the defense in Karen's case is getting at, that, you can't use Solo cups and Stop and Shop bags to collect evidence. Or leaf blowers. That's really the tip of the iceberg. It's more of the policies and procedures in terms of investigating, interviewing witnesses, how you separate them, how you record it, how you document with photographic methodologies, the taillight, how the evidence, the actual physical evidence, is procured, and then chain of custody once you do procure it. Let me just make sure my email is not going to ping.
Now, I have a question just because it's floating in my brain, and so I want to ask it. And it's just out of curiosity. Could the O'Keefe family do a civil suit to the Canton police with this?
They could. But my short answer would be they could, but they should wait. If I were their attorney, I would tell them to wait for there to be a final disposition of the matter, meaning Karen's matter is pending. Let her be acquitted, hopefully, or convicted, which we don't hope for, and have that play itself out, at least to the first level, because if she's convicted, she's going to appeal it. And I don't even like to think about that. Once that's resolved, meaning at the trial level, yes, the O'Keefe family, in seeing and receiving a report like this, if any of them are watching or watch hereafter, I want to send you all a very polite message right now, which is this. This report, which I've already said is kind of, we should have expected it to come out plain vanilla or almost rosy as it relates to Canton PD. This report is extremely unbiased. This isn't Michael Easter of the defense. This isn't ARCA, who everybody on the Commonwealth side is trying to say, well, they really weren't Fed specific and the defense had a rooting interest and paid their expenses for travel. This is as independent as it gets. I'm forecasting to you all that at an absolute minimum, the defense should ask and make a request formally, whether it's verbally or in writing. They should ask Auntie Bev to take what's called judicial notice of this, meaning they should say, we intend to use this and rely upon this when questioning witnesses, including law enforcement officials at the time of trial. I'm forecasting that Hanky is going to object to that, which only further lowers my estimation of him as a lawyer, because this is an independent body that reached these conclusions. He's further hiding the ball, and this is essentially a public entity's hired vendor that reached these findings. It's not like the feds hiring ARCA. This was Canton hiring, I forget the name now of the company, but this auditor. So this is the kind of thing that the court should take judicial notice of and permit the defense to explore these findings with, whomever it is. Lieutenant, I'm going to get their titles wrong, Gallagher, and there's Lank, and there's Seraph, and you name any law enforcement officer, including Proctor, in the whole timeline of events, they should be questioned about these deficiencies. So O'Keefe's, if you're listening, this is the best independent evidence that you're ever going to lay eyes on that should remove any type of confusion that you may have right now as to where law enforcement failed you. They failed you.
And your son and your brother.
That's correct.
And your uncle.
That's correct. And that is, Esty, why I, and I know you as well, care so much about this, because Officer John O'Keefe, he's never lost in any of this. He's just not. So no matter how many people try to say John's getting lost in this. So I digress for a moment, but I did want to make everyone know that this type of report here is a clear pathway for not only Karen to sue hereafter, but the O'Keefe family to sue hereafter. I do hope the municipality and other public entities up there have good insurance, because this report is not helpful to you. Right. But the essence of the findings on page 96 that are bulleted, yes, after they've indicated that there was really a failure to follow policies and procedures, are that there were no photos taken of John O'Keefe, yep, exactly where his body was located by the Canton PD. That's also important, because if you recall, Trooper Paul, yep, he never knew. He never laid eyes on where the body was. So even if he had seen a picture and said, this is where the body was situated, I can now do I'll hold off my editorializing, but I can now do my measurements and experimentation of how this accident took place. He relied upon, if I recall, the findings, or at least verbal communications of Gallagher, no relation, to tell him, well, yeah, I was found over here, or the crime scene spoke to him.
Yeah,
so
he was waiting for the scene to speak to him.
Yeah, inanimate objects apparently speak to Trooper Paul. So no photos were taken to document where John was found. Canton police officers used their personal phones to photograph and videograph the evidence collection at 34 Fairview. And Canton PD's policy, a digital camera or laptop should have been used to do that. This was not done. And it looks like the photographs that have come out of this series of events were done by personal phones. I've always been mildly disturbed by if I'm glitching, I apologize. I've always been disturbed by the use of personal phones in this matter. I get it. Sometimes you use what you got. I wish Proctor had taken a picture of the taillight when he first laid eyes on the vehicle in Dighton. But they're supposed to follow these policies, and they did not. They also found that the Canton PD first officer on the scene, who I think that might have been Seraph or Good, I don't remember. Your chat may tell me. The first officer on the scene should have photographed John where he was found before he was moved. That goes in line with what I just said. Jennifer McCabe and Kerry Roberts, whose names are bolded. I'm thinking, if anyone's curious, their names were bolded because they're not employees of the municipality. I think they were singled out because they're in no way connected with the Canton PD or the township or municipality of Canton, not because they're especially wrongdoers here. I just wanted to point, that's my interpretation. But they should have been interviewed. Those interviews should have been recorded. Now, some of this stuff is so elemental, but not all of it. Not all of it, Auntie Bev. And they should have been interviewed at the Canton Police Department after Mr. O'Keefe was taken to the hospital. Both witnesses accompanied Ms. Reed, and drove Ms. Reed to 34 Fairview Road. So that triggers, for, editorializing here, the fact that throughout this really acute post-investigative time period, the post-incident time period, you had a failure to timely interview not only Jennifer McCabe and Kerry Roberts, because there's others too who should have been interviewed immediately. Alberts, the different Albert families, the Bryans, the Chris's, their spouses, Colin Albert, Julie Nagel, you name it, fill in the blank. Documenting by recording those types of interviews, having it being done either, in my opinion, at the Canton PD, which is what this audit says, or if we were to even extrapolate or expand on that, if it's not going to be at the Canton PD due to a conflict, for example, which seems to have been invoked in name only, but due to a conflict right away, there would have been any other local police department where those interviews could have taken place in a timely fashion. They should have been recorded. The witnesses should have been separated, especially Jennifer McCabe and Kerry Roberts. As the audit points out, they were the ones who traveled with Karen.
And found the body. Traveled with Karen and were the first on the scene to see the body.
Yeah. And the next bullet ties into that, because the next bullet talks about Nicole and Brian Albert should have been interviewed at Canton PD. So again, I'm not discounting the fact that I don't think any interview should have happened at Canton PD, although it doesn't look like this report has taken that added step, trying to comment on a quote conflict of interest. That's fine. But Nicole and Brian Albert are the homeowners, or were the homeowners. And you and your audience know very, very well that as the homeowners, if there was ever a dead body on your front lawn, and everyone, they're looking at the crime scene, they're trying to figure out what happened. Karen is, literally freaking out. Others maybe were freaking out, or maybe were a little too cool for comfort, in my opinion. Those were homeowners, dead body on the front lawn, dead officer on the front lawn. There is, in my legal opinion, probable cause to search that home. And even if there wasn't probable cause under the legal definition of the term to search that home, there would have been, in my opinion, an exception to probable cause under the law, which is called exigent circumstances, which would have permitted law enforcement from Canton to go into the home and search. But beyond that, they could have just asked. They just could have asked. And we all can agree, Esty, I'm sure, that even if they had asked, can we come search your home because, hey, you have a dead officer on your front lawn? had Brian Albert or Nicole Albert as homeowners said no, which they have every right to say no in different scenarios here, wouldn't that look suspicious? Now, again, they have a right to unlawful search and seizure of their home, but we can agree that had they said no, how would that have looked? It's kind of like if someone invokes the Fifth Amendment on the stand, the right against self-incrimination. If you plead the Fifth, even if you have every legitimate reason not to incriminate yourself under the advice of counsel, it sure looks bad. So this audit has been critical among the things we've been talking about of even Nicole and Brian Albert should have been interviewed at Canton PD or, in my opinion, elsewhere. What they don't go as far to say is that Nicole and Brian Albert should have been interviewed immediately as well, in addition to Jennifer McCabe and Kerry Roberts, who had traveled with Karen to the property. Last bullet is that the Massachusetts State Police and the Canton PD failed to maintain police presence at 34 Fairview to maintain the integrity of the crime scene. Both agencies, the police department and the Massachusetts State Police, should have coordinated to have an officer maintain a presence at 34 Fairview, pending that second search by the MSP. And I agree with that. And just so everyone understands, it wouldn't have taken much. Even experts who have commented on streams that are in the Free Karen Read movement, they've said, and I think I've heard Aidan Carney say it as well, like, just post an officer there, put him in a van. Yes, I understand there's a storm, a very robust storm, but have someone with a thermos full of coffee and a bag full of Dunkin' Donuts sit there in the storm and just maintain it, keep an eye on it. But all evidence to the contrary, because in this case, I think they were out of there, meaning cleared the crime scene in the 6 a.m. hour. If it wasn't the 6 a.m. hour, maybe it was the 7 a.m. hour. And chat, please forgive me if I'm botching that. Either way, it was early morning on that Saturday, January 29th. And that is something that should never have happened, especially because he had passed away. Then the jurisdiction for the investigation clearly transferred to the Massachusetts State Police. There should have been no, in my opinion, abandonment of that property. Who knows what could have happened during that time? And now we're kind of
walking their dogs, the dogs doing their business on the scene there. And
By the way, I know I'm rambling, so I apologize. On your channel, I never like to step on the foot of a creator.
No, that's fine. I usually talk donos anyways.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, I think that people need to not only see this report, but understand a little bit of what's not here or fill in the blanks a little bit. It helps people, in my opinion, better learn or understand the full picture of what's being said here. So in addition to those bullets, so now they've said they didn't follow their PNPs, policies and procedures, and those bullets were paramount on 96. They go further, because in the report, they also talk about incomplete coordination of requesting video files. Now that will go as far all the way, including Sallyport videos, etc. And we're now seeing it. They're releasing, wrong word, releasing more and more up until, I want to say, even last week or a week ago Friday, there was like more video coming out that I at least had heard mentioned by David Yannetti in court. It's unbelievable. So there needed to be proper maintenance of these videos, custody of them, rollout of them. And in addition, when I say maintenance of them, it sure looks like this report is at least intimating that the video files of any nature were not properly secured. I'm using the word maintenance, like maintained, but secured, because is it in an iCloud of a now retired officer? Was it in some, quote, detective file? Was there something that was procured by Proctor that was somehow put in, I think I read in a recent filing or argument that something ended up in Proctor's paper file. And I want to say this came out in Judge Cannoni's decision on the motion to dismiss. Something had been requested by Proctor, and I think it was all of the Sallyport videos, but something was procured and obtained by Proctor, but then put in Proctor's file, and allegedly the prosecution, meaning let's just say Lally for that purpose of this sentence, Lally was not made aware of that. Okay, I don't believe that, but that's the kind of thing this audit is poking at. They're saying, not a good maintenance of the video logs, and certainly not a good chain of custody of them. I'm still on 96 if anyone cares. And then also, due to the blizzard conditions on that morning, the Massachusetts State Police waited until after 4:45 to begin coordinating that search of the crime scene. And I'm kind of holding aside the fact that we all know there was a time discrepancy in terms of what happened to that vehicle between the time Proctor procured custody of it vis-a-vis the tow truck driver and when he actually documented that he had it. I think there was like an hour and a half or an hour plus of like undocumented time. A lot could have happened in that time. But according to the audit, each piece of evidence should have been carefully logged and tracked to establish the timeline. That's chain of custody. And it's not just who had it, and it fill in the blank. It could have been the murder weapon, meaning the vehicle. It could have been taillight pieces, articles of clothing, which, as you all know, Proctor ended up having custody of for a period of weeks before he ended up putting them into the alleged proper custody, and at which time they were tested. So that can also replace the word it. On page 97, they continue and they say that once evidence is processed, it should be stored in a secure and controlled environment, such as an evidence room with restricted access. And these are the kind of things that Michael Easter, for example, had he been permitted to testify, would have testified about. That, excuse me, is not within the average, they call it Ken, like a Ken doll, the average Ken of the jury. A jury is not expected to know, although many of us would know, that evidence has to be properly handled from the moment it's procured until the moment it is really produced at trial. And that includes logging it, initialing it, time stamping it, if it goes from hand to hand to hand, who did the handoffs and when. If you all recall, you would have seen that done probably properly when there was testimony coming out from a lot of the lab technicians who would say, okay, what piece of evidence are you looking at? Let me check my records. Okay, yes, this is a piece of taillight from blank. So they're looking at their notes, and that's very important for the integrity of the evidence. And then the report goes further to say that if there's any doubt about the legal requirements, it's essential to consult with the department's legal advisors to ensure the integrity. I don't know who the department's legal advisors were, meaning the police department's legal advisors were. Many municipalities have their own counsel, their own corporate counsel. I've served in that capacity roughly 15 plus years ago for some municipalities. I dare say nobody did that here. Nobody consulted with Canton's legal counsel to say, are we doing this right? Is there anything we can do better? We have a conflict. What should we be doing? I can tell you there's things that any attorney would tell them not to do. An example being Kevin Albert, who is a name not often spoken about in this case, but Kevin Albert who's also a law enforcement officer affiliated with that department and obviously related by brotherhood to Brian Albert, the homeowner. He should never have been communicating with Proctor. He should never have been communicating with anybody in the investigation, including Proctor or anyone else, about arranging for interviews, or, for example, making introductions for interviews, like I think her name is Katie McLaughlin, the paramedic type of technician, the one who came out and
Firefighter,
said, I
yeah.
hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Yeah,
So
she was the Albert's friend.
yeah,
Caitlin Albert's
who
friend.
who claims that I went
She's
to
just an
school
acquaintance. No,
went
you
to
were
school with a girl named Caitlin Albert. Give me a break. But it
girl.
did seem to me that Kevin, there's so many Alberts, that Kevin Albert was serving as a broker of information. He was kind of shepherding and arranging opportunities for there to be introductions. Oh, talk to Katie McLaughlin, or yes, you can have this interview room available, or
Mm.
you can use this Sally port, bring it here. That should never have happened by very virtue of his relationship with the Brian Albert family, and therefore the conflict that resulted with the Canton PD. So then, I know I'm rambling, so hopefully your audience is not asleep, but you guys can play it back later if you've fallen asleep. But
They're good. They're playing with each other. They're fine.
good. So they reached findings and recommendations. Their recommendations were to increase the training of the officers, for patrol officers and sergeants, on how to access and manage crime scene investigation, crime scenes, so to speak, and to do witness interview and interrogation training. This is a very standard recommendation. To be honest with you, I think this is a stupid recommendation, in that they should all know how to do that. That's textbook policing as far as I'm concerned, but it's a recommendation. Second recommendation is that the chief of the investigations division should review all death investigation police reports and ensure that every investigative avenue was properly pursued and handled previously before reports are finalized. So it's kind of like, look back at all of your other death investigations and see that you did it properly before those, quote, reports, which have legal significance, are finalized. That is a recommendation that is calling for a look back. And I don't know anything about death numbers or crime scene death investigations in the Canton area. But if I were a resident up there, I would say, let's make sure we do. Let's make sure this look back as to prior deaths is done. What I don't remember is if, like, for example, Sandra Birchmore, I don't think isn't that Stoughton? I don't think that's Canton.
It
But
is Canton.
Was she in
Her
Canton?
apartment was in Canton, yes. The
Okay.
Stoughton police officer was the one that killed her, allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay. So everyone give grace, because I'm not from your neck of the woods. But if
Oh, yeah.
her death was in Canton, I am taking recommendation 2 to mean that, in addition to obviously the federal charges that have been lodged against Matthew Farwell, this is a recommendation to the Canton PD by virtue of this audit. For example, I'm using Sandra as an example. Sandra, her death should be looked back at to see if they need to look back at all of their investigative efforts concerning her passing, and then to see if they need to have revised anything or filled in and completed more robust reports related to her passing, to ensure that all documentation is prepared and it's properly finalized so it can be used as evidence in court. And that's what anyone should want: reliable evidence in court. Recommendation 3 is that they want the Canton Police Department to rewrite their policies and procedures related to utilization and authorization of personal cell phones to photograph or videograph crime scenes. That's a reasonable ask. I think those P&Ps should be revised. And for many of the entities that I represent currently, which are required to have policies and procedures, it is never too late to rewrite them. We live and learn by mistakes or new things that happen. So they should be rewritten, not only to address how to properly use cell phones at crime scenes, or when to use them. Like it sounds to me like they just didn't use them properly at all, or for limited reasons. Maybe policies need to be implemented to say, hey, if you don't have a town issued phone or a laptop with you, you must use your personal cell phone for A, B, and C. The recommendation 3 talks about all policies should be changed to require the use of only department issued and owned cell phones to photograph crime scenes. No use of those cell phones. So, that's what this recommendation is. I subscribe to the theory of use what you got when you got it. But if you have a department issued means of electronics, you should use that. Recommendation 4 is that all sergeant and patrol vehicles should be equipped with full crime scene kits, including bags, sealing equipment, and digital cameras. Phones issued by the department should be placed in patrol cars for officers to utilize. Patrol officers and sergeants advised the audit team that Canton PD has 1 digital camera at headquarters. That's ridiculous that they have 1 digital camera at headquarters. That needs to be fully revamped. And I think that's a reasonable
And can you
recommendation.
just say, like, the amount that they're paying these police officers
I know.
to
It's
police,
unbelievable,
but
by
they
the way.
don't have the equipment in order to do the right jobs. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. The
there has to be a
salaries,
balance.
correct, Esty. That's so right. And the salaries are so ridiculously high. So I'm a proponent, for what it's worth, of reducing salaries, scaling back, not raising taxpayer dollars, scaling back and cutting down some of these salaries to ensure that there's a proper line item budget for more robust electronics to be used, whether it's phones, digital cameras, laptops. There's no reason why the default of use your own phone if you got it should be in play. But I have to say, I don't even love the use your own phone if you got it approach. I guess, if you're in a pinch, yes, we as a department want you to pick up your phone and snap a picture of that taillight, but you should be using departmental issued equipment because of the very snafu that Karen Reed is in right now, which is, you're in a position where there's been deleted data, there's lack of metadata, there's no logs, there's bad chain of custody. So at least if it's all through the department, meaning the whatever entity it is, Massachusetts State Police, Canton PD, State of New Jersey, pick the public entity, then there's a legal accountability to ensure the integrity of evidence. And you don't run into problems like suspected manipulation of text communications, for example, alleged between Allie McCabe and Colin Albert, or Brian Higgins, the ATF agent, which is a federal agency, kind of curating his own set of text messages between him and Karen using federal resources to hand them over out of the goodness of his heart in the investigation, and then basically tossing his phone in the most ridiculous manner possible. So using departmental and public entity related electronics and modalities like that should promote the integrity. I'm saying should, and I get it, folks, doesn't always happen that way, but should promote the integrity of that investigation, and at least leave someone who ends up in Karen's shoes, or even Aiden Carney's shoes, if you've got to challenge something, to say, well, wait, you are the municipality, you are the state, or you are this public entity. I am entitled to make sure, and you are entitled to show me that there has been an integrity to the chain of custody of data that I am allowed to confront witnesses with. And then lastly, the fifth recommendation is that prevailing law dictates that the Massachusetts State Police or the DA's office will lead death investigations, but it does not preclude or prevent the Canton PD from assisting the Massachusetts State Police in investigations. The audit team recommends Canton PD should engage and support Massachusetts State Police and the DA's office as deemed appropriate. So, I think that's a general type of recommendation, which is Let's hold the conflict aside. Let's presume it wasn't at the Alberts. It was just the house next door to the Alberts, which I'm not going to refer to by the pejorative term that I think it was Matt McCabe used. So the house next door to the Alberts, no connection to Canton PD. This happened next door. What the auditors are saying is this shouldn't be a game of hot potato. Like, well, he's not dead yet, so it's our domain. But once he dies, it's the Massachusetts State Police. That's where things get missed, opportunities get overlooked, or you're just passing the buck there. It's not us, it's you. It's not you, it's us. Evidence can get disrupted, corrupted, lost in the mix of that. And they're saying in this report, don't do that. As deemed appropriate, it's not a matter of waiting till the death to decide who's got domain or jurisdiction over this. Somewhat have an all hands on deck approach. And then the report goes on with corrective action recommendations. Just so your audience is aware, typically when there's an audit and they find deficiencies, which they found here, we started them, I believe it was on the page prior. They issue recommendations, which we just went through, and then they will offer how the matter can have corrective action. In my field, it's often called a CAP, a corrective action plan. And this type of agency that, it's a private entity that did the audit, but it's somewhat of an agency type of investigation audit here. And they're saying, here's corrective action that should be employed. And essentially they're saying that on Halloween of 2023, Chief Rafferty updated the P&Ps, those policies and procedures related to evidence collection and preservation. Reference is made to Canton PD Order number 601. I've never seen that, so if anyone knows what that is, let me know. The new policy includes protocols, including how to handle crime scenes in inclement weather. And that new policy also has elements of evidence collection and preservation consistent with an entity called CALEA, CALEA standards and best practices. Sounds to me like Chief Rafferty, and I mean some respect to you, Chief Rafferty, not all due respect. She sounds like she probably put together some revision to policies and procedures to make some changes, but I don't know if they pass muster. What I can forecast for you, Esty, and the audience is that this audit report and findings and some of the referenced policies and procedures most likely will, not most likely, they absolutely will be part of the questioning of key law enforcement officials during the Karen Read trial, especially because of the elimination of Michael Easter as an expert. They can't totally be barred from doing so. Many people will say, oh, Bev can do anything. But this is a departmental audit that was procured at the request of the town. It is an outside expert that has reached these findings. They do have expertise in this area from what I can tell in terms of their online ratings that are not affiliated with them. I'm trying to find out a little bit more from the entity, as I mentioned earlier, but this is the type of way, by referencing the different policies of the Canton PD, how they were changed after the incident, and how they are now implemented versus used to be implemented. This is the way you get law enforcement officials who are witnesses for the Commonwealth. During cross-examination, the defense can pick at it and say, well, pick at it, not pick at it. They could pick at this and say things like, well, but you didn't do that, right? And you collected your evidence in Solo cups and Stop and Shop bags, and you didn't use a departmental issued electronic device, right? Right. But you had your own personal phone on you at the time and you didn't do this, right? Right. So they're going to use this, whether directly or indirectly, to undermine the competency of law enforcement. And also in the corrective action plan here or section that they've referenced, they've mentioned here that the audit team who conducted this audit verified that the department purchased crime scene units that are now available for crime scene collection for all Canton PD officers. They discovered that Canton PD only has one digital camera, which is assigned to the detective division. And in a little italicized section, they said, well, Chief Rafferty is in the process of purchasing new digital cameras. I'm going to make an offer to you, Chief Rafferty and the Canton PD. I'm happy to donate money so you can buy them, so something like this doesn't happen in the future, because that's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know why. I mean, she could run to Best Buy. She could order them on Amazon. But I'm happy to write your department a check to get this done so something like this doesn't happen to an innocent individual and their family in the future. The audit team recommended that officers should receive crime scene training, which Chief Rafferty confirmed she supports. So happy that she supports that. In February of this year, Chief Rafferty, when coordinating with IT or an IT specialist, purchased 5 iPhones for utilization by the detective division. So nice of her to do that. In conclusion, they have found no evidence supporting claims that the Canton PD officers tampered with evidence, but I think one of my car alarms is going off. It will stop shortly if it's bothering your audience. It's probably kid related, but they found no evidence supporting claims of tampering. But I'm going to let you all know this, that I do not get the sense that this audit team was really tasked with drilling down on whether there was a tampering issue. That's not what
them.
Yeah, like that's
would
not
tell them
what
and where to look for that too. Like,
correct. An investigation into evidence tampering, it's a tall order. Okay, this type of entity that did this audit, it's more of a procedural type of analysis. Did they follow proper procedures? It's not a forensic analysis. I truly suspect, and this is my opinion and not that of bESTEY's channel, I suspect, having done police work in the past and reading regular audit reports at least weekly, I suspect that somebody strongly recommended that sentence be put in this report. No evidence of tampering by the police. It's like it sticks out like a sore thumb, and I know better that this type of entity, this auditor, isn't forensically tasked with that type of look back, that type of job. The audit team found that the only Canton police officers that should have been recused from 34 Fairview were Kevin Albert and Chief Kelleher. I don't know how I feel about that. Canton PD has full investigative authority to work in concert with the Norfolk DA's office and the Massachusetts State Police on death investigations. Again, these are all sticking out like sore thumbs to me. These are legal conclusions. It's not factual ones, like you failed to follow policies and procedures. What is in this conclusion here, as I'm reading it to your audience, this is like a closing argument by Hank Brennan. This is a legal argument. They didn't violate any duty. They didn't do this. Nobody should have been recused as of that. These are sweeping legal conclusions. It's argument, as we call it, and it sticks out. So for anyone who's like, and I haven't looked, fighting about this, because I think trolls will jump on, look at the conclusions. Before anyone jumps to those conclusions, I would strongly encourage you to just hear at least my take on this, which is, that's not what this auditing body or any auditing body does. These are not legal experts who offer those types of opinions. This was a procedural look back. And I'm also predicting one other thing here, which is that it is unfair and, as we say, incongruous. It just doesn't align for Michael Easter to get barred as an expert from supporting Karen's Bowden defense, her defense of trying to say the investigation was flawed against her. It's unfair and incongruous for the court to bump out or to bar Easter, but then for Brennan and the Commonwealth to try to say, we want these conclusions in. So we want to bootstrap an argument that these are our experts. They found that there's no findings of tampering. There's only these two people had to have been recused. So right now there might be, and you may all anticipate possibly, some type of future dispute in the form of a motion as to what happens with this report. Do the findings come into evidence? Are they allowed to be relied upon by the defense and or by the Commonwealth for the same reasons, for different reasons? Personally, I feel like it should come into evidence. Perhaps the gentleman who prepared the report from this entity will have to authenticate it. It should come into evidence, and both sides, through the process of cross-examination, their opportunity to probe and test witnesses with it and challenge witnesses with it, should pick it apart like vultures and use it for their own whim. Use it to try to say, but this says there was no evidence of tampering, and let the other side battle that out through witnesses. And then have people like Yannetti and Jackson say, well, look, it says you didn't follow policies and procedures here. How do you feel about that? And then let Brennan battle it out through cross-examination. And then lastly, the audit team did, lastly, it says the audit team did, where are we? Excuse me. Okay. Based on the interviews and review of investigative reports, the audit team determined that the Canton PD, as first responders, worked on the initial crime scene and conducted initial interviews of some witnesses on the scene. The audit team did find policy and procedure failures relating to crime scene processing. So that's favorable to Karen. The audit team has determined that Canton's internal controls and compliance oversight have improved since the event and since the initiation of the audit, which is, by the way, what audits are supposed to do. You're supposed to improve performance as you go through them. And effective leadership is in place to supervise future critical incidents. The audit team advised Chief Rafferty regarding our recommendations, and Chief Rafferty has confirmed that new crime scene procedures have been implemented. So I think I've touched upon everything as it relates to this. I haven't discussed, and I did not even read, there's a whole section here on Birchmore.
There is, yes.
Which, due to my own time constraints, I probably can't discuss with you, but I'd be happy to at another time. But I will say,
I'm hoping Mizzy, because I love, because that's her thing. She's been working on that for 2 years. She is devoted. She is Sandra Birchmore's voice.
And it looks, I agree, she's the voice. So if anyone has questions about that moving forward, or even if Mizzy does, or Esty, if you need my take on that, I'd be happy to help. But I will, while I'm glancing at their, I'm just glancing very quickly at their findings for Sandra Birchmore, and it looks like, in a nutshell, officers should digitally photograph all crime scenes and sketch the scene. They should have all death investigation reports be reviewed by the chief of the investigations division prior to being finalized, and the Canton PD should remain involved in all death investigations. So, they're actually very similar deficiencies. So that's why I just wanted to touch upon it, because it's a theme. There is a theme here, and there's multiple themes. I'd be interested for Mizzy's take. And the last thing I would tell all of you is that this type of audit, no matter who thinks it really was it was a nothing burger, or it really didn't seal the deal for us, for the Free Karen Read movement, I actually gently disagree with that. Even though that conclusion section has, and that's, I guess, around page 98, even though that conclusion section has what I would call sweeping legal findings that really an auditor is not supposed to be making. I'm getting the sense someone asked them to shoehorn that in there, and I think I know who did. The findings, meaning the recommendations, the bulleted deficiencies and the recommendations, are far more, in my opinion, beneficial to Karen's case than the conclusion section is detrimental to her case. So we'll see what happens. I'm sorry for the long-windedness. This stuff really interests me, and I think it will and should be permitted to be used by both sides at the time of trial.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to read all that and share your expertise and thoughts on it.
My
I mean, I
pleasure.
needed that. Yeah, and I know that I feel like if I needed it, then there must be other people that want to absorb your brain too. So,
Oh, thank you. Sometimes
yeah.
I'd like to just absorb and destroy my brain. It's in overdrive sometimes. But I would also mention, if anyone, I always just like to say this, if anybody wants to make a donation to Karen's Defense Fund, Esty is just the best in terms of, she takes nothing and directs it all towards Defense Fund. And I would just strongly ask all of you that if you feel generous, to please do so. And it was great to see you all today. I mean, I'm happy to answer questions. I have a couple minutes left before I have to run to
Does
a
anyone have any questions? Like,
really
just drop them
boring
in the chat
meeting.
quick. And
Yeah.
I did pin the Defense Fund page to the top of the chat. If you're feeling inclined, because she does need it, guys. She does
Yeah.
need it. Every single penny.
Yeah.
So quickly looking through, you're just getting a lot of thanks. A lot of
Oh,
thanks.
thanks,
And
guys.
hoping to hear
Um,
from you and seeing you, and they're happy to see you.
we'll see,
Um,
guys. I was kind of looking to scale back a little bit, but Esty is so damn convincing. I have to say,
needed you.
you might want to consider a career in law. And normally I don't even like to stand next to her due to beauty, but I'm happy to stand, side by side virtually. And it's great to see you, Esty, and all of you. And if anyone does have future questions of me, even after I pop off, feel free to send me a message on X, or I have like a Facebook page. You can put a message there too.
Yeah. Well,
All right,
they want to just
guys.
know if it's tiring being awesome.
Oh, it's just tiring. I can't say it's it's just tiring. But
She
no.
shares her awesomeness with all of us, though, and that is what we all need to remember about her. Is
Oh,
she
thank
does not keep
you.
that stuff to herself. She pours it out to us. She lets us enjoy her brain and
Please take
and
it.
her generosity and her heart. I mean, hello.
You
Like
know what's funny? Since I've been believe it or not, it's only been a few days, but since I've kind of made a conscious effort to stream a little bit less, I have gotten more rest, and I will tell everyone sometimes it's okay to step away even when you feel frustrated, which I'm not saying I do, but sometimes people reach out to me, and I'm sure they do to you, SD, and say, I'm so frustrated with these decisions and these rulings. How can it always come down this way or that way? Sometimes it is good to just take a little break and step away and have a little self-care, and then the movement and the framework of and network and family of people, I believe in my heart, they're just there waiting to embrace you back when you feel a little bit better. So it's
always.
good to be back. If
Yes.
anyone needs me, just put out the back call.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I
Bye,
love you, Nan, and
guys.
hope to see you again. But of
Thanks,
course,
SD.
everybody take care of yourself first. Put on that oxygen mask before you help others.
Thanks, guys. Have a
Love
great
you.
evening and afternoon and evening. Bye,
Bye-bye.
SD.
Okay, guys. That was amazing, wasn't it? I needed that. I just as soon as the audit came out and the information was flooding, I was like, this is a lot. And I needed explained on how it was actually going to tie into Karen's case, especially with Bev's ruling of not being able to have Easter. And I was like, well, here's the information that like shows it from an unbiased source, like an audit team that has no game in this at all. And it's right there for you, honey. So Easter was out, audit was in, and hello. And I just needed, I am so grateful that Nan took time out of her day to share her brain with us, because sharing is caring. And that's what she's amazing at. So yes, please. The Defense Fund link is at the top of the chat. And like I always say, stay calm, dono on. Is that how I write it? When did I write it? Stay calm, donate on. Because it's not productive to take your anger out on people that are trying to entice you, or, tease you with your frustrations. The best way is to fight back with what Karen really needs. It's encouragement, it's support, it's donations, and it's her community, her Free Karen Read community. It's us. So, and we all need each other too. And we have each other. That's the thing. We're stronger together. We're going to get through this trial together, this trial that shouldn't be happening. But just know that we're all in this together. We are doing this together. And that's what matters, because we are good humans. We are doing something that is bigger than all of us. We are getting justice for an officer, a police officer, that had an untimely death that should never have happened. And the people that did it are not being held accountable for it. They're just blaming on someone else, and it's not right. So those are my final thoughts. And I will see you guys. I'm thinking it's Sunday that we've decided, but I might go back to my Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Because I just can't get enough of you guys. But stay tuned. You never know. But I love you all. Thank you for hanging out. And I'll see you when I see you. Free Karen Read. I love you. My besties. Thank you, mods. Thank you, chat. Till next time. Love you. Bye.
They told you to shrink yourself, didn't they? To make yourself small, quiet, and easy to swallow. They said your fire was too much, that your desires were too wild, that you should be ashamed of the hunger in your soul. But here's the truth they won't tell you. The world fears women who know what they want. They fear women who refuse to play by the rules, who aren't afraid to burn everything down just to feel alive. You were never meant to fit in their little box. You were born to shatter it. They want you tamed because they can't handle the storm that's inside you. But why should you apologize for being powerful, for wanting more than a life of empty smiles and shallow conversations? You deserve to be wild, to be unruly, to take up space unapologetically. Stop dimming your light for people who can't handle your shine. Remember this, the ones who fear your power will always try to silence it, but your voice was never meant to be quiet.